A week ago, freezing rain shut down I-84 in Oregon and paralyzed towns in the Columbia River Gorge. While 2 Sundays ago, an ice storm in the plains was the worst in a decade in some places and even prompted the NFL to change the start time of a playoff game. I'll use that storm to take a deep dive into typical atmospheric conditions during an ice storm. Now to start, here's temperatures over the plains at the surface the morning of January 14th. The blues and whites correspond to roughly 20 to 30 degrees. That cold, low-level air covered Kansas and nearby states. Meanwhile, here's temperatures 5,000 feet up. The greens and yellows in those same areas represent 35 to 50 degrees, so relatively warm air sat above the cold air near the ground. Here's a map of Weather Service watches and warnings the next morning, Sunday, January 15th. The dark purple color here indicates ice storm warnings, a forecast of 1/4 inch or more of freezing rain. Now let's look at the atmosphere along a line that cuts through this ice storm from Joplin in southwestern Missouri to Valentine in north central Nebraska. Here's what's called a cross section of temperature. Let me orient you. Joplin's on the right, Valentine on the left. The vertical axis is height above sea level. And the areas shaded here in color indicate where temperatures were above freezing. Now the values, which I know are pretty small, are in Celsius. So 0 is 32 Fahrenheit, 6 is about 43. So you can see the below freezing air in the lowest few thousand feet. Above that, a layer several thousand feet of warm air aloft, temperatures above freezing, and above that, temperatures go back below freezing. Now in this setup, what I call a warm air sandwich, as snow falls from high altitudes, it'll melt into rain as it falls through the warm layer, and then as it falls into the low-level cold, it'll either freeze in the air into sleet or freeze on contact with the ground into freezing rain. Now you need moisture to make precipitation. Let me now overlay relative humidity at that time. Now these lines are relative humidity. That says 90 and 95. Anywhere inside these lines, the relative humidity was close to 100%. So the moisture was there. And lastly, air needs to rise to make clouds and precipitation. Those yellow lines show the vertical motion. Negative numbers here mean upward moving air. And in this entire zone, that's indeed what was happening. So in the end, these 3 ingredients overlapped over a broad area of the plains that included much of Kansas and southeast Nebraska. In Kansas City, the Steelers-Chiefs playoff game was moved back 7 hours to allow temperatures to rise above freezing, but not before about 2/10 of an inch of ice built up on the seats. Other places in Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma had thicker accumulations of ice that brought down trees and power lines. Are any icy storms in our future? Stay tuned. The extended forecast is next.